Hello, welcome back to another episode of Coaching Conversations. Today, we're speaking about how shifting your perspective will shift the course of your business. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Coaching Conversations with Nick and Chris. Nick, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. I'm a little bit waterlogged as we speak. Here comes the rain again. Right?
There we go. The whole East Coast has been hammered by a bit of water over the last 7 days.
Yeah, we're waterlogged.
Very much so. I am just over the hill from one of the communities that got completely flooded out. And I spent a good part of my Saturday on the weekend helping those in need and helping shift mud and shift possessions and dumping those onto the street and, talking to people about what they've just been through over the last kind of 7 days, or not even 7 days. For them, it was 3 or 4 days. Actually, the guy that I helped, I was moving a lot of stuff from him out of his shed. He actually had to get evac'd out of his house. So the floodwater came up so quickly, the boats actually needed to come and take him and his wife and his kids and take them to higher land because they couldn't get out in time. So just amazing stories. And today, I wanted to touch on that. And that's why we're going to be speaking about perspective and how shifting your perspective can really help change the way that your business runs and change the trajectory for which your business travels. So if you want to kick things off, Nick, perspective, what does it mean to you? Or have you got some start off advice around?
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting topic. I think, when you're in a particular perspective, you're in a particular perspective for reasons. Somebody wakes up and goes, hey, I just want to be shitty today. Or I want to have a negative view or a negative outlook or a positive outlook, or whatever the outlook may be. You never usually do that. It's usually an accumulation of patterns and habits and emotions and, mental states and, all of these type of, circumstances and sequence of events that puts us into that. But once you get into that, it's interesting because that becomes your new normal, your new reality. If you put a soldier into a war zone, or if you look at, war zones around the world, until war really starts taking hold of that, I've been seeing some footage of the Ukraine. People are still kind of driving their cars and riding their bikes to the shop and doing it. And there's a war happening in that country. It's going to Now, if you're 500 kilometers away from the city, well, maybe it's not like the war's at your doorstep, but you're aware of it, you're seeing it, you've acknowledged it, you know it, but things are, business as usual at some levels, right?
Sure.
But if you're in the city, you're like, mate, I'm seeing the tank outside my front door. There's I don't think I'm going to work today, right? So but what I'm trying to say is, if you train people for a particular environment, that environment becomes dominant environment that they're in, right? So, and I think most people don't realize that that's the dominant environment. It's like if you walk with a limp and you've been walking with a limp for a long time, now that's the norm of walking with a limp, right? Think about it like that. Now, is there an ability for you to, shift that, change that? And the answer is yes. And I've kind of got sort of 3 key areas I think that need to be discussed here. I mean, this is a big topic, but I think, 3 are there. So, and I know you were talking about kind of the floods and how it affected people. And, maybe you can sort of tell us a bit about that and your experience, once again, with a positive kind of outlook and a mindset.
That's right. Yeah. So they are definitely catastrophic. And I live just over the hill from a community that I went and volunteered for on Saturday. And I'm not saying this and bringing this up on the podcast to get some praise on my own behalf. It's about actually bringing it to the forefront. This community, which was Timbolgum, little village just over the hill from myself. We're in the northern New South Wales area, so the news has kind of covered everything in Brisbane and everything in Lismore, but these communities are kind of in the middle and kind of lost and forgotten by anyone that's mentioned it. So, I took some pictures and I shared them with you before this episode, Nick. It was around going, hey, like there's some real devastation that's occurred. And going down there, it's different from seeing something on the news, seeing a natural disaster on the news and actually being there in the aftermath. It gives you a completely different perspective on what has just happened and the severity of what has just happened.
That's just interesting. Sorry, that's just interesting right there.
Yeah.
Most people don't realize what somebody else is going through until they've had that themselves as well. You know what I mean? So
very much so.
That's kind of, sorry, I wanted to pause you just because it made something come up for me to say, you know, a lot of people can see the war from a distance and go, you know, prayers for the Ukraine, but they don't know, or for Ukraine. Yeah, do you see what I mean? Like, I think, you know,
it's definitely, you know, and I'm going to use that as the example. It's completely shifted my perspective around the assistance and aid that a community requires after any sort of flooding event. You know, prior to that, anyone's watching this, let's say you might be, you know, in WA or somewhere else in Australia where you're not getting affected by a flood, and you're watching it and it's devastating, and you're seeing people getting, you know, evac'd out by boats, and then you change the channel and then you watch something else, or you go to Netflix and watch whatever it is, and just nothing's really changed. But
business
without
as
actually
usual, right?
putting yourself into that environment, it's very confronting. You know, when people are emptying out their homes onto the streets so a garbage truck can come and collect it, and everything's covered in mud. By actually getting down there and getting dirty and helping these people in any way that we could, and listening to what they had to say, it's a completely different experience. So it's given me a whole new perspective on what people are actually going through, both physically and mentally and emotionally. So that next time something like that happens and it's close to me, it's going to be almost more of an incentive for me to actually go and help someone, because I've been through it now. I've experienced that. And I think it's that perspective that that shifts the way that you think and act in relation to, you know, an outcome per se. I guess if you're looking at this from a different angle, the interesting part about perspective now is looking at that and then driving through this community where everything's just wrecked. It puts me into a different position to go, wow, we are so very thankful for where we live. You know, I feel, you know, deeply for the people that have been affected. From my perspective, it's something that I'll do what I can, but it puts, you know, an element of gratitude into where I'm placed. You know, we live on a hill, thankfully. Yes, we got a lot of water, but a lot of that water runs off. So I'm extremely grateful for, you know, for our house, for who we have. It kind of made me appreciate what we did have. You know, I got home and got a car and a caravan and all of that. And, you know, I just thought, wow, you know, an hour ago I was tossing people the same stuff out. I'm so grateful to have this in my own life.
All because of a geography or a topography.
Yeah, that's right. But it made me appreciate what I had at an even deeper level. And I think that's probably stuck with me more than anything. You know, times can be tough. You know, the internet doesn't work. Like last week, I didn't have any internet, and I was like trying to do sessions and do work, and it was frustrating me. But then spending time down there on the weekend, I'm like, far out. Internet's like the least of my concerns, or the least of their concerns.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the way that perspective has come around for me. That's what I've learned out of it. But there's always an element that you can take away to provide you with a level of gratitude. And I think that's one of the big keys for shifting perspective. Hopefully this relates back to what you're going to speak about, Nick, the 3 keys that you've got there.
Yeah, and let me kind of set this up. Most people don't appreciate what they've got, number one. Number two, it's very easy for us as humans to think negatively. It's almost built in our DNA at some levels because, you know, back when we first started as humans, there were a lot of other things that could eat us, right? And harm us, and, you know, all of these things that we didn't realize. So there's always almost a state of alert. Plus, we needed to hunt for our food. So, you know, if we didn't hunt, it probably hunted us. So, you know, once again, it's easy for us to go into it, and that's, you know, a whole other discussion. But and let me kind of set this up. So there's a guy that I know that's you know, near one of the factories that I'm in. You know, that my man shed is there. And, you know, he's got a business, pretty successful business, I think 6-7 mil or whatever it is. And he's Mr. Negative about everything. It's crazy.
Right.
And perfect example. So I'm there yesterday. I'm working on my caravan, and he happens to come there, and he's tries to get away from home a lot and comes to the man shed. He's got a little man shed, doing up car and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And the first thing he goes, oh man, yeah, we went to this 22nd birthday yesterday. He goes, because the girl tried to do it 21st, but because of COVID and stuff, he goes, you wouldn't believe it. He goes, we're there. They spent $9,000 plus food, plus the whatever. He goes, and we couldn't even smoke. And I'm like, where was it at? And I know the pub of where it's at. I go, I thought the smoking sort of outside. He goes, yeah, but there's a section they couldn't, the bouncer kept on telling us, can't keep on going in and out. It's COVID, all of this stuff. And he goes, finally, they knew we weren't happy. They got us a few ashtrays and we started smoking there. I'm like, okay. Second thing, he goes, oh, the food was all right, but it wasn't anything special, like the money, all of that type of thing. And then he goes, I noticed this kid that, he's a young kid. He goes, I know he's sort of going backwards and forwards. He gets on the phone, hops outside, comes back, gets on the phone, hops outside. He goes, I think he was dealing stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. He goes, and, I went to the toilet and he walked past and I, grabbed him, shoved him against the wall and told him, if you're dealing, he goes, man, I'm going to call the cops myself and all of this stuff. Then he starts talking to me about he's had some, personal issues with his wife and communication and all of this stuff. I told her this stuff and, she should have agreed on it and she didn't, but now she's in agreement. She wasted all my time doing it. This is in the first 10 minutes of me saying hello to him. Like,
wow.
And every single time I see him, it's always, oh yeah, and then no one, oh, the guy made, he's cut his fingers. He went to grab a fan. He's one of my electricians. Now he's been off 2 months. What should I do? I think I'm going to have to sack him. I'm not going to hold his job. I said, oh, is it work cover? He goes, no, I did it at home. He goes, mate, look at the position he's put me into. Now we need electricians. What am I going to do? Wait for him? Then if I get somebody else, what I'd say, that guy, sorry, leave. This guy's come back. And now I don't trust him. I'm just like, and, I'm cool. I'll listen, but it's one of those things. So I suppose the big sort of takeaway just from this part is be careful of the state that you're in, because then that becomes your normal state. And I'm not just saying him. I know a lot of people like that are just negative, everything. They're trying to tell you all the drama rather than the good thing. Not, oh, I've got money, business is going good, I've got the kids. Hey, we was awesome, went to a 22nd, got to meet all the people, did that stuff. Oh yeah, something happened with his car, now he has to pull the engine back out of it and it's all done. And he goes, then no, it was my fault, but actually it was the other guy who didn't come, and another $5,000. I'm like, dude, call it a $5,000 exercise. I said, you're never going to do that again, you'll learn from it. Yeah, but it starts to, 30 minutes of negativity. It's these guys, I hope it, right? So, I think you've got to watch that state. Now, there's three kind of key areas that I think it's that you be able to do in order for you to shift your state of being, of how you are. Sure. By the way, if you're in always a really good positive state, well, that's a good thing. These only apply if, maybe it's something that you're not seeing and it's a, negative sort of state, if you want to think about it like that. So first of all, I think number one is recognition. Most people don't actually recognize they're in that state. And the reason being is a lot of people love to hang out with other people that are exactly in that state. Have you ever noticed, thieves hang out with thieves, that's usually how it is, and if you're in jail, you got a lot in common. And I don't think it's about, hey, did you read this latest Tony Robbins book? I don't think it's going to be that in jail. They're talking about ways to, coerce, steal more, become a better criminal, evade the law. It's all of that stuff, because that's a state. And the jail is a perfect idea of this, recognition. Now, first of all, you need to recognize, is it your environment, or is it your external environment, or your internal environment? And what I mean by that, like external environment, is it all your mates that are always, super negative, like they're just, like they're always in that state, are they the sort of people that are kind of bringing you down and, all of that type of stuff? It could be work colleagues, it could be, whatever that you're into, that you need to recognize as an external. Perfect example, a friend of mine, he's been hanging out with this dude that's kind of ex-con and, bit of a drug addict and drug deal, like coke all day, hangs out, and he's got nothing better to do, doesn't work, and his missus supplies him money like an idiot, and all this guy does is that. So he goes and hangs out with my mate, and then they get on it, and instead of doing work on a Friday, they just snorting shit up their nose and then partying on Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, no wonder. And then my mate's business starts go down. A lot of this stuff, he's putting on weight and, just smoking all the time and all of this stuff and just negative about attitude. And I told him, I'm like, dude, could this be an influence of what's going on here is affecting your business? Because I don't, you know what I mean? And by the way, I'm not being judgmental. What I'm trying to show is that sometimes the external state of affairs is so influential that no wonder your business isn't going right because your head's not in the right place, and it's a kind of knock-on effect, right? So,
sure.
So that was, that now. Or is it internal? Is the recognition of you being negative internal? For this guy, the first guy that I told you about, there's this whole thing for him that it's like the world owes him a favor. He just got diagnosed with this issue that's he doesn't get over things. It takes him 3 months to get over it.
Right.
He's been a little bit sort of, violent domestically and with his wife and a whole bunch of other stuff this is all the stuff he's done, right? And I've been trying to be cool with him and give him some ideas, but once again, is there an internal kind of, loop that you're stuck in because it feels like the world owes you a favor. You know what I mean? Like, and you said something interesting. A lot of people had an attitude of gratitude to go, geez, thanks, Chris, for coming and helping me. You didn't need to. All of these volunteers are there, and it feels good to be able to do that. They don't go, hey, watch it, mate, you're trespassing on my property, and, fuck you. And, they're not going to do that. Or, hey, mate, what do you want? I'm not going to pay you. You're like, I don't want any money. Like it's, when I volunteer to feed the homeless, it's the same thing. I do it because actually I find gratitude in them allowing me to serve them. Not the other way around where I'm serving them. They're allowing me to serve them. I mean, it's a great honor for me to serve another human, right? So you've got to kind of recognize whether internal or external. That's number one, because unless you recognize it, you think that that's your world.
So is the best way to recognize it by asking yourself the question?
Yeah, look, that's a great point. One really good way to recognize it without having to ask a whole bunch of other people, am I negative, is just to kind of record yourself. Just record your conversation. And you got to do it, reasonably diligently to be able to record it and just listen back to it and go, shit, am I like this guy or girl that every conversation's negative? Do I start off negatively? Do I, some people I go, hey, how's your day, man? Oh, what do you expect it to be? It's raining, shit, the weather's shit, the thing that I can't cut the grass, the dog thing, where then I can change it around. Hey, man, what's good about your day? Oh, yes. Nothing. Oh, so you're telling me that breathing isn't a good stuff? Like, you can show it differently. So most people don't even realize that that's all they do. I told you with my sister, she went through a whole period there where it's just, as soon as I open the door, boom, it's like, man, this, that, oh, the thing with Paul and, this guy, my boss at work. And I'm like, don't come here and just kill me with this stuff.
Unload.
For an hour. Like, I get it. You want to offload and I'm the, the pinprick cushion or whatever. I'm like, but, it's all the time. It's a habit. And I told her like 7 or 8 times into it, I'm like, hey, Joe, like, you got to stop. Like, this is what you've become. And people, they get fueled on that anger. So asking yourself that question, the best way to do it is listen to yourself talking. Number one. Number two is recognizing what your thought patterns are and whether they're all negative all the time. And you could write them down. Am I always in a state of fear? Am I always asking negative questions? Do I always feel like somebody's trying to rip me off? Do I, it's all of that. I remember when I used to do martial arts with Kung Fu, the Sifu there was like a monster. And, he walks into the toilet and he's worried if somebody's going to jump him and choke him from the, he goes out to dinner and he has to have his back to the wall so no one can, he takes the dogs for a walk and it's funny. The shit finds him because that's the shit that he's sending out. Right. Takes a dog for a walk, some Russian dude walks past, kicks his dog. That's it, they're in a brawl. Goes to a restaurant, you know, he's in the trough and some dude fucking says something, everyone, you know, just like cuts him off another guy cuts him off in the car, almost, you know, it just turns into that. And I'm like, you know, that's not my psyche. I believe everyone's an awesome person until such time that they're not, you know, like, and not to say that I'm, you know, open arms for everyone. I'm not, but it's, you know, there's a element of, you know, how much you want to get stuck into this perspective. Okay. You know, because if all you've got is a hammer, everything looks like nails, right?
That's very true. Good. Recognition's really powerful and very important. That's the first stage. What's the second stage?
Look, step two, I think, like even with this guy that I told you, you know, the neighbor guy, I think it's recognition. You know, I think now he actually recognizes that he's got a problem. He's got anger issues. He's got all of this stuff. And you know, he realized it, said, can you help me? I said, oh, it's probably, I'm a bit too close to home, you know, but, you know, that I could recommend somebody. And, you know, I think he's got a psychologist now, all of that type of stuff. So I think recognition, recognition is first. Number two, is reconciliation. You've got to recognize what's going on. And number two is reconciliation. And reconciliation is to go, you know what, man, maybe you know what, this has been me. I need to reconcile how I think. I need to maybe be prepared. And reconciliation is an interesting period because that's where you go, I'm not standing on solid ground anymore. You're not that person that's been in that environment internally and or externally, and now you're trying to break away from being Mr. or Miss Negative. Like it's crazy, right? So because have you ever noticed the patch of people that you hang out with, if they're always negative, as soon as you try to break away and go, you know, I'm not going to take your call, or hey, let's change the topic, or you know, they get a bit arced up because now they go, oh, we can't just talk negative with each other. And you know what I mean? It's a whole new language pattern that you need to have. So, you know, reconciliation of that is important from the perspective of you need to reconcile and be okay with yourself to go, man, I can't believe how much time I've spent in this place.
Yes. So you're making the decision as to whether you want to continue being that person or not.
Absolutely. You know, I think, and the reconciliation part takes a bit of a time, you know, and if you think reconciliation or, you know, from a religious point of view, it's actually, you know, I'm reconciling my sins. So you're kind of reflecting on, you know, what is it that you've done, and you've got the choice to go back down there or you don't. Now, a lot of people, unfortunately, probably going to yo-yo back into that negative state as well, right? Because it's easier the devil you know.
Yeah, really, and it's habitual, right? They've probably been doing it for 20 years plus, so
it becomes ingrained. Like, you know, Dr. Joe Dispenza spoke about that your thought patterns become your body, but then your body controls your thought patterns.
Yes.
It's insanity, right? Like we think that the mind controls the body. It doesn't. The body actually then starts to control the mind. And I know that, especially when I had my Achilles tendon rupture and stuff, my body controlled my mind. Be careful, don't do that, don't step like that. Put my foot down the wrong way, oh, watch it. It turned into that. And even till now, you know, I won't take off fast in a sprint or any of that stuff, and I'm still rebuilding my calf 2 years later, you know, because it's, you know, the like 50% smaller than my right leg, you know, so all of that stuff kind of plays on you. But now I'm learning new habits and strengthening it and changing my attitude around it to go, well, you know, I can't keep on living like this. It happened, I'll deal with it. If something happens, I'll deal with it. So the reconciliation part of it is also about saying, all right, now I need to make a decision to move forward. Because if you go, you're going to stay back, you're going to be stuck there again, right?
Okay, good. That's really good. It's like the turning point. You know, you've had your epiphany, and now it's the turning point. What's next?
The last one I think that's really, really important is actually recalibration. And what I mean by you know, recalibration is, you know, how do you start to recalibrate the way that you do things? How do you recognize, you know, I'm going to have that negative thought again, or, you know, I'm about to start blurting out all of this, you know, or, hey, I'm just looking at everything bitterly again, or, you know, so, and that recalibration needs to go, well, how do I recalibrate my new set point? Well, externally, you might start to consider, don't put yourself in situations where you're going to be negative.
Yep.
Number two, shift your attitude to an attitude of gratitude, rather than an attitude of, what's one that you say, attitude of gratitude versus,
instead of expectation.
rather than an attitude of expectation. Yeah. This guy, like I said, it's all expectation. I expect. And it's funny, we've been talking about some other stuff, and I've just noticed that, that it's all about him. He doesn't care about anyone else.
That's it.
Superficial relationships, even with me. He won't come and say hello if whatever. I won't say, "I know I'm going," or where I would. And this is only 2 months that I've known him. But, I'm starting to recognize to go, okay, cool, man. I've been trying to be genuine and open and honest to help and do all of these things, and haven't charged him for my time. And, so once again, it's the recalibration. So externally, you need to make some decisions going, if I keep on hanging or being in this situation, I'm only going to get more of what I get, right?
So okay, cool.
And
so
then,
you go.
And then internally, I think there's a recalibration of the things that you need to learn as, like, undo as well. And what I mean from that, I think you've got to consider, well, internally, how do I stop from thinking that way? You stop from thinking that way by, recognition, reconciliation, and then reseeding or recalibrating your new stuff. So you need to start to replace that old space with a new space. That's what it is. And think about it like this: if your garage is full of clutter, you can't put anything else in the garage. You did it perfectly with the storms and the floods.
Yeah.
They need to get rid of the old stuff because, you can't keep it there. It's old. It's going to rot. It's going to get cockroaches. It's going to do all of that stuff. The carpet, the dirty silt. What do you need to do? You need to chuck that and recalibrate it with new stuff and relive your life again. New stuff, new paint, new thing, a fresh way. There's all of these things that come with. So it's very, very in line with, what you're going through, what your experiences have been with people.
Yes.
With the floods and stuff as well, right? So,
very much so. I mean, I'm reading one of Dr. Joe Dispenza's books right now, and he speaks about this. He says, if you want to become a different person, you have to think like a different person. I'll repeat that. If you want to become a different person, you're shifting the way that you see things, then you've got to think like a different person.
That's exactly how it works. So, and I mean, this, like I said, it's a pretty big topic, but I think, and it's interesting because the energy you put out is what you're going to get back.
That's right.
If you keep thinking scarcely, you're probably going to have more scarcity. Like that's
very true.
Yeah, it works, right?
Very true. Nick, let's wrap up with the 3 R's to perspective, if you can. Shoot through them very quickly once again.
Yeah. So number 1, recognition. So recognize that you actually are in a negative state or not a ideal optimal state, right? Number 2 is reconciliation. Once you've understood that, just sit with it and be okay to be where you're at. The only good thing is, you're getting ready for change, right? Which is kind of cool. And then finally, I think it's about recalibration of, your mind and your being and who you are. And, like you just said, if you want to change that, you need to change you, right? That's
much so.
Yeah.
Guys, I hope that's really helpful for you today. If you've been operating a certain way, if your business is heading down a certain path and you can't figure out why, it could be a reflection of how you're thinking, and then obviously the actions as a result of those thought processes. If you need help shifting your perspective or want to have some questions answered about this, shoot them through to ask@upcoach.com.au. We'll be happy to speak to you about this. Any final words, Nick?
No, I think, you can either go through life below the line or you can go through life above the line.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that you're never going to drop below the line. It does happen. But, I try to live life above the line, and sometimes, yes, I drop into that negativity. And, I speak a lot about this in Apology and the state of mind and state of play.
Yeah. I think it's very good. Very, very true. You get to control, how you think and how you operate as a result.
Completely.
Thank you so much for listening and watching this once again. We'll be back again next week with another episode of Coaching Conversations. Bye now.
Bye now.